truth telling necessitates action, right? I cannot live in the same way I could live when I was in denial. And the reality is, when we talk about not knowing how we feel, if you are thriving in the other areas of your life, you weren't in touch with the misery as it related to the marriage, because you were prospering professionally. You were being a great mom. You had a circle of friends. You were doing your healthy workouts. So it's not like everything in your life was a disaster. So then when people would say, how are you? You would you felt genuinely say, I'm doing great.
Literally.
Literally, like, and you meant it. You meant it.
Yes, very real in that moment.
Yes. And in the other areas of your life, it was true. And what can happen is you can feel like those other areas are compensating for what's missing, so you don't feel that emptiness as much. So it wasn't like you had made him your whole life, and so you weren't getting any nourishment in your life, right? So spiritually, you were getting nourished. Professionally, you were getting nourished. In friendship, you were getting nourished. You were taking care of yourself. And yet it was like to get still enough to say, what about this? Which is supposed to be like my primary support. This is supposed to be like my number one cheerleader. This is supposed to be just, that soul level love. And that it is not flowing in the way that it should. And so it requires, in some ways, even slowing down to notice that, because you can make your life so full. And I'm thinking of a client now who, just stayed so busy in parenting and just kind of missed what was missing because of being like super busy. Mm-hmm. And so when you slow down and then begin to tell yourself the truth, that this is not enough. And it also is costing me, right? Yeah, it's costly.
It's costly to be dishonest with ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because when you ask yourself, or when other people ask you, how could it go on so long? Well, one, you were working at it, and two, you were prospering in other areas. So it didn't feel as the cut, like you didn't realize you were bleeding.
Yeah. It's right? Like just a little paper cut. It's
right.
It wasn't like I didn't get stabbed to death.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
It's like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And then, being a positive person, you affirm yourself. So you make a decision, like when they say like joy is a decision, right? So you would wake up in the morning and say, it's a new day. I'm going to have a great day. and you adjust to it, and it's no longer startling, right? So then, as one survivor of intimate partner violence talked about, was she didn't know when this had become the norm, right? And because it's, the initial time, it's like, oh my God, did you just say that to me? Or did you just do that? Or like, wait, what just happened? And when you have that frame that you described, which is everything's a lesson or blessing, you don't have time to tend to the wound, and the fact that we are worthy of having intimate space where we're not constantly being wounded, right? But that becomes, that's sometimes when we spiritualize, then we can miss what's actually happening. This is so important. The manipulation is real, and it is when ministers and other people are prioritizing longevity of the relationship over the wholeness of the individuals, right? So they don't care that you're miserable as long as we keep counting these years. 10 years, 15 years, 20, and we, give a big cheer, even if both the people are miserable. Because they'll even say, well, you don't have to be happy. I've, heard people say, it's not about, I'm like, that's the world. The world wants us to be happy. And God is like, it's okay if you're miserable. So it's interesting that you would be able to identify the manipulation. And interestingly, I have even had people who were on the other side of things. I'm thinking about a client who's a husband who talked about being uncomfortable. He had cheated many times on his wife, and they went to the pastoral counseling, and he sat there and watched the pastor basically bully her into quote unquote forgiving and staying. And they left the office, but he knew it wasn't right, right? Even though he benefited from it, right? So we have to be very, very careful about who is in our ears, and as you name, how people can weaponize your faith to have you spend your whole life in something that is destroying you. Productive, right? It is productive. And, we live in a capitalist society, and people will praise you, especially if you work for a company. They will praise you to be the first one there and the last one to leave, and doing all the extra hours and signing up for everything. And, we're even in a culture now where people frown on if you have a hobby that you have not turned into a stream of income, right?
I've seen that, yes.
It's like, are you making money off of that? And it's like, no, I just love to do it. But so that perpetual busyness can also be, I can't be still, because if I am still and silent, I'll have to face some things. I'll have to think about some things. I'll be overwhelmed by some things. So let me just keep moving. Some people are also afraid if they got still, they would never be able to move again because they've been stuffing that stuff for so long. So hyper busyness can be a form of that. It also is in, what we use to numb ourselves. And we can often frown at people if we say, oh, they're overusing alcohol or drugs. But there are many things we can overuse, including these cell phones, right? That social media is designed to be addictive. That's why they want to give you constant notifications. Something happened. Somebody liked something. Somebody said something. Come look again, look again, look again. You looked at one reel. Now another reel is going to appear. So you can spend hours of your life numbed out being a spectator in other people's lives. And we can also use food. We can use gossip. We can use obsessions with celebrities. So there are all kinds of things that are distractions and that serve to numb us. And so looking at what are the things that I turn to, what are the things that I rely on, and is it actually something that is nourishing me? It can also show up as emotional unavailability, right? Because that's why sometimes we can be drawn to people who are emotionally unavailable, because when you actually have relationship with someone who's going to really see you, that's going to be uncomfortable if you're not used to seeing yourself. Oh. That's going to feel real personal. Like, why are they asking me all these questions? Or why, true intimacy is vulnerable. And so you may find yourself saying like, why is it person after person that I'm wanting is unavailable? It may be that you're also unavailable, right? But haven't told yourself that truth. So there's basically 3 general types of coping. So there's emotion-focused coping, problem-solving coping, and distraction. And at different points, you may need to use all 3. You're just looking at like, are there pieces I'm neglecting because I am over-focused on one, right? So with the distraction in a healthy way, it's some people ruminate, which is they just keep replaying it over and over and over again. And every time you talk to them, you're talking about their ex, and everything is just like so centered on that. And so sometimes you have to give like your heart a break, give your mind a break, give yourself a break, and say like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to go to the movies, or, I'm going to do something else. I'm going to have lunch with a friend, and that is not going to be the topic of the conversation. So giving yourself that mental break can be a form of coping. Emotion-focused coping are the things that you do to help acknowledge, express, and soothe the distress. So that's, as you named, the journaling. If there are people who I can talk to about, what I'm feeling, and they support me, not judging me, using my expressive arts. So some people, especially creative artists, will say like their best poem or their best choreography came, out of their heartbreak, and they like put it into the art, and that was like a form of relief and empowerment. We can also use our spiritual practices, so meditation or prayer, reading an inspirational text. And so we want to think about, what do I do to calm my emotions? Aromatherapy, taking a bath, massage, all of those things help emotionally. And then we have problem solving coping. So that is, what am I going to do about it? Right. So, whether that was the filing of divorce or going to couples counseling, or us coming up with some compromise because you wanted to do this and I wanted to do this. And now, like, what are we going to do? So one of the things that's helpful for us to be mindful, what are we looking for when we express our distress to somebody? And if we know what we're looking for, to let them know that, because sometimes what happens is we're really wanting like a hug and a soft place to land. And somebody's trying to tell you about, well, if it was me, blah, blah, blah. They tell you 7 things you need to do and what you shouldn't do. And you're like, I wasn't looking for all of that. I'm going to make my own decisions.
Right.
And then sometimes it's the flip where, somebody's trying to rub your back and you're like, I'm not looking for a back rub. I need a strategy.
Yeah.
So, check in with yourself, and also notice if you usually lean towards one and neglect another. Because some people are like, I'm about solutions, but they never give themselves space to cry. Right. Or some people have been crying and crying and need to come up with a plan. Right. So see, where do you lean?
And intellectually move through it. And I'm like, emotionally, what the heck?
Yeah. So there's a defense mechanism called intellectualizing. Right. So, you keep it in your head. And so it's not as much that something is wrong, is that you have limited yourself. You have cut off access to parts of your experience. And when you have been in a long-term unhealthy circumstance, you can adopt that mindset because, and I don't know the details, but perhaps emotion wasn't welcome there, or emotion didn't feel safe there. So you adjusted. So now that you're no longer in that circumstance, it's time to bring your heart back. And the way we can, we say like drop into our heart, is to be able to utilize more body-based interventions. So if you do like cognitive therapy, that's going to keep you in your head, and that's where you like. It's like, I'm going to think of this and think and change my thought and but to tap into the emotion, like trauma-informed yoga, or like dance, African dance, praise dance, or somatic psychotherapy. Soma means body. So as you connect with your body more, you will animate your heart. You'll wake it up.
Oh, that is so good.
Yeah.
And I genuinely, as I'm listening to you say that, I think about that starting when I was a kid. So, being raised in a home, I'm Belizean American, but being raised by my grandma, who would, give you the fix your face speech. Like, there was no room to have a problem with anything. Like, there was no room to feel sad, even if something was actually a sad occurrence. There was no room to respond any type of emotion.
Yeah. So that was a setup. They taught us what they knew, but it was a setup. And I want to name even a setup in your marriage, because I think you're pretty transparent here. But one of the things that we discussed before is your partner having no idea, like the depth of your despair. And so when we are perpetually intellectualizing and masking, it makes it a secret from us, but also a secret from the people we are in relationship with. And so that's how behavior can, continue, because, you're not looking fazed by it. And you can say, like, I didn't feel like I was pretending or performing. It is the way. Here it is. When we were made to be that way from so young, we can convince ourselves that's just how I am, right? But it's how you were made to be from a very young age, but it's not how you have to continue to be, so that in your relational life and just for yourself going forward, that I want to give myself permission for the full range of human emotion. So important. One, the setup, which is why no alarm went off when you had to do it in the marriage, right? You're like, of course, this is what love looks like, right?
This is what love looks like.
Is I love them enough that I want them to be comfortable, and I can tell they're uncomfortable when I'm expressing, so I'll be quiet. Yeah, I don't have to do this. Yeah, this looks like labor. This looks like a workshop. This feels like a client. This is work, right? And that's not the kind of work that when we say, oh, relationships take work, not this kind of work. So it's a great realization and awareness of your own healing, because with healing, not only will you select differently, your taste will be different, but also you will show up differently. And so you start to recognize those old patterns and say, I don't want to sign up for that again. I know how to do that, but at this season of my life, that's not what I'm signing up for. One of the things when you have been hurt, you can just be hyper vigilant and not trust anybody, even when people haven't given you a reason to, right? So you're like making assumptions or accusing people of things they haven't actually done, versus identifying a behavior that is problematic in and of itself, right? So that's what you want to, not only do I have a feeling, while we do want to get to a place where we can trust our intuition, initially that alarm might be going off nonstop just because of the discomfort and the fear of a repeat. But then to say, if I look at it in isolation, what did they say, or what did they specifically do? That is how I will know if it's projection or if it is manifestation, is showing up in real life. Yeah,
I knew this one was showing up, Dr. Thema. It was very clear.
Look, and then for him to try to criticize your therapy, and that's also a good indicator for you, for any of us, when people can't take feedback, right? Because even knowing you the way that, to the extent I know you, I know the way it was communicated was not like attacking, accusatory. I already know that you said it in a way where anybody who is grounded could hear it, right? And then could have been able to talk about it, even if they were to say, we know the difference between intention and impact. Even if they were to say, when I said that, I didn't mean to be blah, 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 but I can see how it would feel like that.
Yes.
And that you can tell when people can reflect and own, even if it's a partial ownership, right? Then we can have some ground, right?
Yeah.
But when not only do I absolutely reject what you're saying, but now I'm going to insult you and make it about your issues because you've had negative people in the past, so you're not ready for me. It's like, oh, is that what care sounds like? Yeah.
I was like, thinking about, this goes back to that idea that you think that I was in a long-term marriage with these issues, because outwardly, actually, you're not really where you truly authentically desire to be.
Right. That's right. And so we can think about what we made the decision based on. So some people culturally grew up in households where like you were only allowed to become like an engineer, doctor, or lawyer. I've had students undergraduate students who have asked me to talk to their family because they want to major in psychology. And the family is like, what's that? Right. So sometimes it was, in some ways, they felt they didn't get to decide, that other people decided for them. Sometimes people decided based on the money, right? Of like, I want to make a good living and this makes the most. So this is what I'm going to do. And then sometimes people think because they can do something, they should do something. And you want to,
Dr. Thema, break that down.
Yes. Some people think because I can do it, I should do it. So just because you're good at something doesn't mean it's good to you or good for you, right? And other people may have been so amazed you're good at it that they made it seem like, well, that's what you're supposed to do, even though you don't actually like it. It just comes easy to you. So the gifting of the time we're living in is so many people are having a second or third career. I have graduate students who, are middle age and they did another career for a number of years and then either now decided they wanted to go into mental health, or it's always been the secret dream and they saved up some and now they're ready to do it. But as we both said, to give yourself permission to dream a new dream or to revive the old dream, because we spend a lot of hours working.
Yes.
I mean, that's like a lifetime.
Yes.
So you don't want to just dismiss that if and when you have options. I do know, some people will say, my family is dependent on me. And in those cases, I ask people to think creatively about how can I protect time and energy to build the dream while I am having stability to pay my family's bills. And then hopefully as we continue to plant those seeds in the dream, that it could get to a place where it could be the main thing. But, we're strategic and planful for that. It's so true that healing is an ongoing journey. And so it's for us not to beat ourselves up when new experiences show the wound in a new way. It doesn't mean we haven't done any work. It means I'm in a new season. So for example, even around the relationship, a part of your healing takes place as a single person inward. And then a part of the healing won't really happen until you're in relationship, right? Because you can feel like in the abstract, we say like, I'm good, I'm fine, I feel wonderful. But when I actually have to show up for somebody, then it's going to bring up some new pieces. When your child gets to be the age you were when significant things happen, some stuff will show up for you, So when you branch out into these new spaces, and as you said, when people try to make you question your reality, gaslighting and these kinds of things, those are triggers because, you've had that experience before. So it is a continuous journey. And as you named, it affects the different areas of our lives, romantically, friendship, professionally, spirituality. And the big piece, in all of this is defining it for ourselves instead of being limited to the boxes that other people try to put us in, right? Like you said, if the box is finance, then I can't talk about spirituality. Who said, right? But those are the rules. And then I get to decide, are those my rules, right? Or am I going to be out of the box?